Welcome to the shop. This is an off hours, behind the scenes sort of update video on what's going on here in the shop. I know I said I was taking a break, and this is exactly what I'm up to in that time. So here's a quick, raw shot of what the shop looks like from the perspective of the lift where you normally see videos being shot. Here's all the cars that are inside, and here's all the stuff that is all over the place. Like most people that build a garage, I have the same problem. You build the biggest garage that you possibly can, and then surprisingly, within a few years, it gets packed full of stuff. I need to better organize this place, and I have a few things that need to happen, or a few upgrades that need to be made just so that I can clear up some floor space. The first and probably most annoying thing that I do in my shop that I need to fix is extension cords on the floor. I have a cord reel, it's in this tote, and it's been in that tote for the last 4 years. I still haven't installed it. I even have an outlet in the ceiling that would run right over here next to the hoist where it's supposed to go. That's number one on the list. Second thing is finding a place for stuff like the shop vac, the battery charger, the welder, the other welder, the plasma cutter, etc. I need to find a place for all of this stuff to live so that's both accessible, usable, but out of the way. Another thing that is an eyesore as well as a place where junk seems to accumulate is the parts shelf here. I've got a bunch of parts from cars that I don't own anymore. There's all kinds of old stuff that either needs to be sold or moved or put somewhere better than this, because this shelving unit really hinders your ability to pull into the shop, especially because you can see stuff is spilling out from underneath. Another major upgrade I want to make is adding some tire racks. I have stacks of wheels and tires all over the place. There's another set over there behind the Oldsmobile. There's this set here that are my rollers, and I think there's a tire or two over there. I need a place to get these tires up off the ground so that I'm not tripping over them. You guys remember I bought all these engines? I got a really good deal on this whole lot of engines, but it is really annoying and really slow to use a regular engine lift, cranking it or pumping it by hand. Following Dalton's recommendations, I ordered this Weaver air over hydraulic ram for the engine hoist. So I'm going to fit that in there as well, because I have to get all these engines ready to go to New Mexico, and I'd really like that to take a lot less time. Let's start with this damn cord reel. I've had this thing for 4.5 years. It was in my old shop and I just haven't put it up. So I want my cord reel basically right next to the hose reel, which is like right behind that light. That's roughly the center of the shop. I mean, I could probably go over one more stud, but I don't want to get too far from the outlet over here. So I'm going to put the bracket up there and then run the cord, secure that, zip tie up the excess, and we should be done. All right, so sorry for the light being blinding, but the power cord is just stapled up and run over to this outlet, which was for the old garage door opener. The new garage door opener I have is a side mount, so I actually have that running an extension cord down to an outlet. Whatever, don't hate on it, I don't care. The last thing I gotta do is to get the pull cord end of this here to be up a little bit higher. There's a stop up there, I just have to lower it, because otherwise you're gonna be whacking your head on this every time you walk by. There, now it's just a little bit lower, just about the same height as the air hose. That's fine with me. So we finally have a cord reel. Next thing I wanna do is install some of these. These are cheapy folding tire racks. I have a whole bunch of space here on the wall above where this file cabinet normally sits, and I want to put 2 of these in a row so I can store 8 tires up there. So there's the first tire rack installed, and I'm trying to use some of this dead space above the door and in the corner. Yes, I will have to use a ladder to get tires up there, but I'm going to test it real quick. Going up with these rollers, the Universals, Unilugs. Nice. I hope all 4 fit up there. Nice. That's better. Get those suckers out of my way. Look at that. Excellent, right? 2 sets of tires on the wall and off the floor. So because I'm on a roll with the tire racks and stuff, I want to do one last upgrade, and that is to put the air over hydraulic ram on my engine hoist. Those of you, especially members, should know I'm heading out to New Mexico next week, so I want to make loading up all these engines a lot easier than it has been. You've probably seen this on Dalton's channel. These are on Amazon, pretty easy. A couple bolts, they come right out, but I've been wanting to do this for a while. So installation was pretty easy. I mean, one bolt, top and bottom. You saw me kind of fiddling around with it there. Probably an easier way to have done that, but oh well. Look at this. That is so much faster, it is stupid. I can't believe I waited this long to buy this thing. I'll put a link to this exact ram that I found on Amazon. You can buy the air over hydraulic ram for the Harbor Freight for the Harbor Freight engine hoist at Harbor Freight, but it's like 180 bucks. I want to say this one was $100 or less. It works, man. Goes right in. This is fantastic. If you have one of these, get the freaking air over hydraulic ram. It'll save you like 5 whole minutes of pumping the damn jack. That's kick-ass. Good afternoon. Deep into the weekend here, and I need to make another crucial upgrade to the shop. I bring home cars all the time that don't roll, that don't move, that don't run on their own power. And I have to get them in here somehow, and that can kind of be a screw around. So Steve 2.0 gave me this for Christmas. It's incredibly gracious of him. This is a 5,000 pound Badlands winch. My plan is to mount it to the floor under the workbench so that I can pull cars straight into the hoist without us having to push them. Now we will still have to unload them and get them into the yard, but this will at least make it easier to pull shit inside. I want to put the winch essentially right in the center line of the hoist right here, which basically puts it right under the corner of this workbench right here. I got to pull the workbench out so that I can get a hammer drill in there, and I'll show you what I'm planning to mount the winch to the floor. But in order to pull the workbench out, we got to get the toolbox out. So we're in for a little bit of a fight here, but I'm gonna dig all this stuff out and we'll come back. So I was able to squeeze the toolbox out of the way. It's gonna be a lot of fun going back in with that thing because this is like exactly the width of the toolbox. Anyway, I think I'm gonna pull this out just a little bit and then measure up roughly where centered on the hoist is and mark the floor. So here's everything that comes in the box. And it sucks, I actually bought an ATV winch mounting plate right here, and this one is not the same, but they do supply a winch mounting plate with this winch. So if you're looking to do this yourself, just open the box. It should have what you need. My thought process is this. I think if I bolt the winch down to this plate using the 4 outer holes, I can probably put 2 and or 4 concrete anchors in the ground to anchor this plate to the ground. Now we will have the bolt heads on the bottom here, so this will be off the ground just a little bit, but I don't really think it'll matter that much. I think 2 to 4 anchors holding this plate to the floor should be plenty. I'm gonna get the winch assembled per the instructions and then get it on the plate and then put that on the floor. I'll catch back up with you when I'm marking out for my anchor holes. So here's what I've got going on. I had a mark right here that's 17 inches, 17 and a half inches or whatever off of that cut line, and that puts us about centered on the lift. Unfortunately, if you look at where this upright for the workbench is going to swing in place, it's going to be right on top of this mount. So I am going to offset this based on this mark. I'm going to offset this just so that the edge of the plate is right there. So we're going to be off center by a couple of inches, but overall it shouldn't matter. We have a steering wheel on the we have a steering wheel in the car, so we should be able to turn it or whatever and pull it in straight. Grab the vacuum here and plug it. Oh, wait a minute. Aha! Might as well use my new dang cord reel. Oh, that's so nice. It's an extension cord that picks itself up. So we've got our 4 holes drilled. I actually drilled 2 more holes that were a little bit wider set in this base plate so that hopefully we could get it to where this thing has a little bit bigger of a footprint. So I'm going to hammer the anchors in real quick, and then we'll bolt the winch to the plate and then the plate to the floor. Here's my setup. It's bolted to the mount plate and there's holes drilled and there's anchors sunk in the concrete. It was kind of annoying to bolt the winch to that plate and to get that plate bolted to the floor, but it looks like it's in there. It's pretty solid. I just pulled the winch cable out just a little bit, but I'm gonna shove the workbench back, and then I'm gonna figure out how to route the wiring all nice, and I'll get a battery under here, and we'll get this all set up and maybe get a test. All right, that actually lined up pretty much perfectly with where I wanted it, so that's cool. And you can actually access the side of the winch to turn it to freewheel or engage from this side. I think we'd have just enough room with the toolbox in place. I'm gonna put the toolbox back in place and test that. Now, if you remember, this was a little bit of a tight squeeze, so we're just gonna give it a try and hope it works. Remember, I had to kind of shove them in here. Looks just about like it did, right? And yeah, like I said, you can get at the winch right here to engage or disengage. Oh, look at that. I got stuff back on my bench again. Man, it's only been like, 20 hours. Don't worry, I'll get it cleaned up. So here is the completed setup. I mean, it's temporary right now because I don't have the right terminals for this side post battery. But here's essentially what I have going on. The winch is down here, mounted just inside the upright here. And then the power wires come up and around. The solenoid is right there. And then the control and the battery connections come up, hit the side post, and then also back in here I have a little battery maintainer that's going to be plugged into the wall pretty much all the time. So that battery's never going to go dead. And then the control, I'll probably just zip tie it to this upright or something and put it right up here. So I'm going to hook it up and give it a shot. All right, here we go. Oh wait, nothing. Okay, I might have to engage it. All right, and there is a red wire over here that says it's supposed to go to ignition power. I wonder if this is the missing component. Let's see. Yep, there it is. All right, so I'll have to put a ring terminal on that wire. Look at that. I know what you guys are thinking. Will it pull a car? So I'm gonna back up the Mercury, I think. Back it right out, leave it in neutral, and see if we can't pull this damn Mercury in here. Because if we can pull this inside, it's pretty much gonna be no problem for most other cars, because the Mercury weighs like 5,000 pounds. All right, so the Mercury is parked right outside the shop. It's in neutral. I'm gonna grab the winch here and just see if this thing will pull it in. I'm kind of excited and also kind of nervous because I want it to pull the car in, but I don't want to die either. Good news is, seems like we have plenty of winch cable. Okay, found what I need. This is the spreader chain. It allows us to hook to both frame toe points on this Mercury very, very easily. Well, here goes nothing. I can't decide where to stand so that I have the least amount of chance of death. You know what? I think I'll stand right over here behind the upright. This thing is pretty beefy. All right, it's either gonna come busting out of the floor or it's gonna pull it in. Here we go. All right, here's the test. Oh yeah. Once the car rolls a little bit too, the winch just doesn't really have to work that hard. All right, now is it gonna crash? It might. Hold on. Hold please. Give her a little left rudder. Okay, I'm a little less afraid. It's almost past the rough part. Come on, little winch, let's do it. Yep, look at that. Holy crap. Awesome. Oh man, okay. Well, this is one of the heavier cars that I'm ever going to pull in here with that thing. So, I mean, yeah, we might have to fight a little bit if we got sticky brakes or something, but I could always jack the car up and put it on the wheel dollies. That was immensely easier than pushing this son of a gun all the way in here. Welcome back. So today, my mission, what I was gonna do was change out the uprights of my workbenches because I'm using this pallet racking stuff from Menards. It works really good, it's heavy duty, but they don't stock it in store anymore. So I went to the store and I bought a whole bunch of the different stuff that they now stock, and wouldn't you know it, it's not compatible with this stuff. I got the same racking over in the corner and the same racking on the parts shelf behind me. Stuff works really good and it's interchangeable and you can move it around and stuff. So my plan was to go up 8 feet with this and then go over the top, connect to another piece of 8 foot over there, and basically run one giant shelf all across and above the toolbox and everything. Try to give myself more storage for some of the build parts that I keep over here, like spare turbos and AN line and AN fittings and whatnot. Unfortunately, I have to order that stuff, so it's not going to come today. So we're switching gears and I'm going through the parts shelf over here. As you can see, there's all kinds of stuff on the ground. I have 3 extra transmissions. One of them is junk. It's from the Diplomat right there. I have an FMX transmission that came from the donor. I got the engine from for the F100. And then I have my old rotary pickup transmission. And then all these bins are full of old parts from cars I don't own anymore. So I'm making a pile and all of it's going in the trash unless I can find something valuable. So I know it doesn't look a lot different, but those 2 totes are full of just trash. That's all stuff that I'm gonna get rid of anyway. Cleaned up a lot of this stuff. All of those transmissions that are for sale are underneath the lower shelf. Should give us a little bit more room over here. Tire racks are up there. And the benches are clean over here. So I'll talk to you about my new idea. Welcome back, we're at it again. And I went back and forth between whether or not I wanted to even mess with my shelving project. Turns out if I wanted to get more of the racking I had, it was extremely expensive and they didn't have it in stock. So instead, I bought all the materials to build exactly the same type of thing for a fraction of the price. If you're curious to add 8 foot uprights, shelves, one over the middle, and the same thing on the other side, would have cost me over $500, and I would have had to wait probably 3 weeks to get material. All the wood behind me, including the sheet, including the plywood that was already pre-cut to size, was $120. So unfortunately, I'm gonna go the cheap route and build my own shelves like I have with every other garage. If experience tells me anything, you shouldn't listen to me at all when you're doing carpentry projects. It's definitely not my forte, but the basics of what I'm doing here is I'm gonna build 2 2-foot deep, 8-foot wide shelves to go over the workbenches, and then 1 4-foot by 2-foot shelf to go over the toolbox. The idea being if I can get shelving above the workbenches, I can put a lot of my turbo parts and other stuff that I need when I'm putting cars together right above where I'm working on them. Pretty simple setup with this. To get exactly 24 inch deep on your shelf, you have your 2 8-foot long pieces on the wide side, and then the short side legs need to be cut down. You have a 2x4 in the front, a 2x4 in the back. They're 1.5 inch nominal thickness, it's 3 inches, so cut your center supports to 21 inches. So this is roughly what I'm thinking for a shelf. The center support pieces are going to be about 2 feet or so from either end. We'll space them like this evenly so that we get these little pockets, which with 1/2 inch OSB should be plenty strong enough for all kinds of stuff. I mean, I would think even a small transmission would fit on there and not break through. So we've got the frames for the shelves built, and this is going to be a little bit sketchy. So if you're like an actual carpenter or construction person, maybe skip ahead until these are mounted. What I've done is I put a block up on the wall. It's going to act like a cleat. I've seen cabinet guys do this, so I'm going to take the shelf frame, I'm going to hook it up on that cleat, and that way it'll hold the backside. I'll punch a couple of pilot holes through it, and then I'm going to use lag screws, not lag bolts, but lag screws to hold the shelves to the wall. Just for now, until I can cut some 45-degree supports for it later. I imagine this is gonna be a little bit sketchy. Ugh. That's why I built these workbenches the way I did. Each shelf is capable of holding some serious weight. So unfortunately, because of my limited place to stand, I'm gonna have to wear this shelf a little bit. Okay. Take a flying guess at this, huh? Sweet. Did not buy long enough leg screws. Really? That seems unlikely. Oh, nope. Kidding. I missed. Whoa! One screw! Holy cow, these are awesome. Wow. Woo! I mean, I don't want to touch it or jiggle it around too much, but dang. That's pretty good for one screw holding that whole shelf. Okay, I'm gonna get a few more leg screws in here and then probably find a way to hang the other one the same way, and then we'll figure out our 4-foot shelf. So I was getting ready to hang this 4-foot shelf right above the toolbox there, and you can see I got that air line run back there. I have an air fitting buried behind the toolbox somewhere. Anyway, I will probably reroute these air hoses someday, but for today, I need to make this shelf kind of go around that air line. And one of the ways that I came up with that I could put a notch in the very back board of this is to screw another piece of wood right to it and then sink your drill bit right here, and that'll create a little pocket for that hose to ride in. So with that second piece of wood screwed to it right there, you can just run this, and I want to think where I want that hose is to be just on the other side of this support. And there you go. You got a nice slot right in that frame piece that hose can tuck right into, so you can screw this thing tight to the wall. Just thought that was a cool little trick. Probably someone's thought of it already, but worked pretty good. So there's the mock-up. 8-foot shelf there, 4-foot right over the toolbox, and then an 8-foot above that workbench. So now I'll work on getting some supports in there to hold these things from falling off the wall. And don't worry, there's just enough room on either side of the toolbox to put a support on either side. And that thing being just 4 foot across should be more than enough to hold that, and I might even tie that lower shelf up to the upper too. I'm gonna get to cutting supports and I'll be back. All right, so I did a whole bunch of stuff off camera as per usual. I wanted to be more efficient, but check this out. I found these 2 fluorescent shop lights down in my basement from my old house, and I just zip tied them up in place real quick so I have light, but look at that. Man, that is pretty sweet. That's tons more storage. I got light right above my workbench, and I got this lower shelf now so I can move like the radio and stuff. I'll clean it all up in here again. Obviously get all the stuff off my workbenches. Those of you who saw my reel on Instagram should be screaming at me right now. You know, I gotta say, things are looking pretty good in here. A couple odds and ends left to pitch. Made some room over here. Sold a couple of parts, junk engines and stuff, so I can now tuck the engine hoist over there. The shelves and lighting by the workbench, this is awesome. I mean, highly recommend it. Just build yourself some shelves. It'll be worth it. Hang a light from underneath. Look at that, there's like 2 individual work cells. It's pretty cool. Interrupt your program for a little bit of gratitude. We had 2 more Parts Fund donators this month. Jason Sutherland and Jeremy Hughes, thank you so much. Donations like that help keep the lights on, help keep the cars rolling in and out of the shop. I very much appreciate that. Thank you so much for the support. You guys know I'm heading out to New Mexico, going to pick up a car that I've wanted for a long time. It doesn't have an engine though. Luckily, I have several engines to pick from. So here's what I've got. I have a 400 Pontiac with a transmission. I have this, a Buick Nailhead with the, I don't know if you hate it or if they're great, Dynaflow transmission. I looked up the numbers on this one. It's a 364. I don't know about that. And then I have another Pontiac 400, but no transmission. But I also have this. This is a small block Chevy. It's a 327 with a turbo 350 transmission. And if you believe the air cleaner like I do, this is a 235 horsepower 327 with a 2-barrel. Now, like any diligent car YouTuber with time on my hands, I should probably at least verify that this engine does anything. I unloaded it off my trailer when I bought it, and that is pretty much it. So I do know that this thing rotates. You can kind of spin it by hand, but I've never actually thrown a bar on it to try to run it all the way around. seems like it's actually turning over just fine. I wonder if it has any oil. I noticed we don't have a dipstick for the transmission. We also not have one for the engine? All right, so the engine oil dipstick is also missing. Fantastic. I'll grab a piece of TIG rod. I'm gonna throw that down in the oil hole over here for the dipstick and see if I can at least get something on the stick. I don't want to try to fire this thing up without any oil at all. Gotta make sure there's nothing on this TIG rod as it goes in. All right, as I thought, literally not a drop of oil in this thing. So in that case, before I do anything else, I'm gonna pull all the plugs, oil the cylinders down, and then probably put a couple of quarts of oil in this thing and then spin it by hand just to, you know, get some oil moving around in this thing. All I want to know is if I throw a carb cleaner down the throat of this thing, is it going to pop off or do anything for us? I had a jug of 2050 VR1 sitting around, so I hope this engine is good. Otherwise we're dumping, you know, $40 or so worth of oil in it, but it definitely has some funky looking plugs. They're Champions L4Gs. I don't know. They look like a different type of plug, like not a copper plug. Okay. All right, I don't want to rotate it too much more. It's rotating around and we got a little water out of one cylinder. All right. Well, it's really good that this thing rolls over. That helps us a whole bunch when we don't have a starter. Should have looked at this closer. I'll get one of those, come back. I picked up a starter. I'm gonna try it. It's actually a later model permanent magnet starter. I usually like to do that if I can, just because of the added cranking torque and stuff. So I'm gonna see if this one works. I did determine this engine has a 153 tooth flex plate. So this is a starter from a 96 Chevy Caprice with an LT1. Apparently they had 153 tooth flex plates. They go on with 2 bolts in line. So we're gonna give this thing a try. Before I go too much further, I think I'm gonna move the engine to top dead center on cylinder number 1. Then I'll pull the distributor out because I think I have an actual small block Chevy oil pump priming tool that I can shove down in there and at least pre-lube this thing a little bit if I am gonna try and start it. I understand that it may not be necessary just to hear it pop off, but I really wanna make sure that if this engine is good, it stays that way. There we go. And here is my small block Chevy priming tool. Drop this guy right down in here. There we are. Now I'm engaged with the oil pump. And I think this is the oil pressure switch right here, so I'm gonna pop that off and just run the oil pump with a drill until I see oil coming out of here. Whoa, there you go. There's our oil pressure. All right, pressure switch back installed. I'm gonna run this a little longer. I'm gonna call that good enough. We had oil moving pretty much immediately as soon as I pulled the trigger before, so this is probably a good time to take a look at the points. They actually look pretty darn good, but I'll pull the rotor off just to verify. We'll probably touch them up with the points file. I don't know, maybe we can avoid having to do this multiple times. I don't know. There's a very little bit of corrosion, but not much. I'm just excited to break out my vintage ignition tune-up toolkit. I love this thing. My father-in-law gave this to me. One of the coolest tool sets I've ever used. This tiny little file. Oh man, makes doing this stuff easy. I'm gonna toss the plugs back in it, hook up a battery, get a start switch, bypass or loop the transmission cooler lines. We'll see if this thing pops. So I first just want to know if this starter is even gonna work. in this configuration? I certainly hope so, because I've spent some good money on it. Yes. All right, cool. Turns over good, sounds okay to me. I'll put the plugs back in. Got my jumper wire right here. Go to the positive side of the coil. All I'm gonna do is crank this thing for a second to see if I got spark at the plug. No good, not good cranking. Oh, it started to go there for a second. Let's try again, this time with the assistance of my battery charger. This thing spun over really nice by hand. I just think these little jumper cables probably aren't going to do it. So I was wondering why this rig wouldn't work, why it wouldn't spin this motor over. So here's what the battery's reading right now, 11.94. And it drops to about 7.2 volts when you trigger the starter. So this reconditioned battery from O'Reilly has finally spun its last motor. Gotta get a better battery. So I went out to the trailer and grabbed these incredibly heavy duty, I think these are 2 gauge or maybe single aught jumper cables that I use for running the winch. That damn air compressor does this every time. As I was saying before my compressor rudely interrupted me, it always does that. I went out and grabbed the bigger jumper cables from the trailer, much heavier gauge, and now it cranks much better, much faster. I did find out that the points are welded together. So I'm gonna try to track down a set of points. We'll be back. Good morning, Happy New Year. I did get a new set of points here. So I'm gonna toss these in and then we'll try this again, see if we can get any spark out of it. Now I've got it on there. Coil is live. Let's see if we have spark on the spark checker here. Again, I can't tell if this thing is making good contact or not. Okay, so I got the plug right here, just pulled and set right by the exhaust manifold. Hopefully that grounds it. Still no spark. Wonder if our coil's bad. All right, be honest. How many times have you done this? Cap's back on, rotor's right there. Let's try it again. Live on the coil. Try the spark checker again. Wondering if my spark checker is just not making great contact with the plug wire. Ah, yep. There we go. Pleasant reminder. We've got spark now, that's for sure. Look, actual starting fluid. Holy cow. Here goes nothing. Oh yeah! Woohoo! Yeah! Nice! Oh man, let me see if I can get a little bit of fuel in the bowl. So in this bottle is just like a little bit of fuel and whatever leftover like ATF additive. I don't know. I'm thinking it can't hurt. We'll throw a little bit of that right down the throat. Ah, this engine runs. That's a lot. That was a good bit of fuel there. Nice. She wants all the fuel. Woo! All right. 327 runs. I want to see if I can get it to run just a little bit longer because I want to hear it. That's so much fuel. Oh my God. What am I doing? Get to a point where I can run some throttle, huh? It's gonna smoke a little bit because all the ATF in that mixture, but All right, see if I can keep it running on the spray. Yes! I don't want this thing to fall off of this wheel dolly, but yeah! Woo! Woohoo! Yeah! Ha-ha! Woo! All right, sweet. We have a good running 327. Oh, I can't wait to get to New Mexico. All right, let's go one more time. Put a little bit of fuel in the bowl. Yeah! Oh, that's good stuff. Sweet, 327 runs good. Doesn't sound bad or anything. Obviously it's missing some parts, but this is gonna work great in the car that I bought in New Mexico. To all of my viewers, members, and anybody out there supporting the channel, thank you so much. I hope you have a beautiful and happy new year, and I can't wait to share with you our adventure that is starting right now. I gotta get all my stuff loaded up to head out to New Mexico. Thank you again so much, and I will catch you in the next one.